Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the School District of Springfield Township Board of School Directors Interim Board Meeting, February 7th, 2017. We had an executive session prior to this meeting at 6:40 p.m. to discuss personnel issues. So let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reading of the mission statement. The mission of the School District of Springfield Township is to educate and develop all students as learners and citizens who are high-achieving, resilient, and responsible in a changing global community. Roll call, Mr. King.
Mr. Chapman. Mr. Sales. Mr. Lapidus. Ms. Nelson. Mr. Ryder. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Terratusky. Mr. Taylor. Mr. Pinsky.
Here. Announcements. The board, at its discretion, may videotape all or any portion of public board meetings subject to the limitations set forth in Policy 006.2, Broadcasting of Meeting. Board meetings will be broadcast on Friday afternoon following the board meeting. Are there any public comments on agenda items? We have some announcements this evening. So Dr. Nancy Hacker.
Thank you, Mrs. Lipinski. First and foremost, I know that all of you on the board join me in extending our very deepest condolences and sympathies to the family of Nick Bond. Nick was the youngest of four Bond boys. It's a wonderful family. Mrs. Bond has been employed as a school crossing guard for our schools. Mr. Bond has been an assistant coach with our football team. And Nick was not only a senior student at the high school, but he was an exemplary young man. He participated in a number of sports, was an outstanding lacrosse player in particular. He played for the Wissahickon Hockey League. He had played football for us, and he was an all-around wonderful student. Nick represented our high school at Camp Neidig, which is a leadership camp sponsored by Rotary International. He and Charlie Rittenhouse and two other students represented our school district and our community at Camp Neidig last summer. They did a fabulous job. I know all of the individuals at Rotary join us in mourning Nick's tragic and very unexpected loss. We are awaiting news to hear when services will be for Nick. And when that happens, I'm sure the community will be made aware. I do want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Rittenhouse and all of the high school administrators and staff, all of our counselors from across our schools in the district, our psychologists, our social workers, and individuals from Mobile Crisis outside the district, all of whom were at the high school today. We were able to prepare yesterday, fortunately, to have all of them deployed to the high school so that they could be on hand early this morning to work with students and provide support from the moment that they entered the school building, and also to work with our staff members who felt the need to talk with anyone. Obviously, this tragedy has impacted the entire Springfield community, but most particularly here at the high school. And I just want to commend everyone at the high school for really maintaining order and calm. There was a wonderful candlelight vigil last evening that was held around the flagpole. So obviously there is tremendous sentiment and an outpouring of support for the Bond family, as they certainly deserve during this terrible, terrible time. I'd also like to announce that Mr. King and Mr. Taylor and I attended a meeting in the Souderton School District yesterday. Good evening, Mr. Chapman. We were there for actually some discussion on a proposed bill that is coming out of Harrisburg that would eliminate property taxes. And at first look, that sounds like something that would be welcomed by everyone, to know that they no longer would have to pay a property tax bill. But unfortunately, as we have been learning, as information about this property tax elimination bill has been rolled out, that unfortunately it's not as good as it seems. The meeting yesterday included two superintendents, Frank Gallagher from Souderton and Jim Crisfield from Wissahickon, who spoke of the impacts on their districts and the particular issues relative to them. It included another business administrator, Matt Malinowski from the Upper Moreland School District, and the school board president, Joe Cerisi from the Springfield Area School District, as well as Larry Feinberg from the Haverford School District. Many of you may know Larry's name as being one of the most active and influential individuals from PSBA. He's the winner of their Timothy Allwine Award for his advocacy on behalf of education issues and in support of students across the state of Pennsylvania. Each one of them spoke about the detrimental effects of this proposed bill. So I'm just going to highlight a few key features of this property tax elimination and what it could mean for us here in Springfield. The bill is calling for an increase in personal income tax for all residents in the state of Pennsylvania from 3.07% to 4.95%. It would also increase the sales tax on all purchases from 6 to 7%. And I want to emphasize the word all purchases, because behind this bill would be an elimination of no sales tax on food and clothing and other kinds of personal items. So those items would now all be taxed at the increased rate of 7%. Renters, of course, will now see an increased burden. Renters across the state do not currently pay property taxes, but as the result of these new taxes, they obviously will be impacted by it as well. Many districts rely on their businesses and corporations to pay a substantial share of property taxes. Mr. Crisfield from Wissahickon talked about that in particular, the incredible revenue that they get from businesses. Here in Springfield, we get about 12% of our budget, a little bit under $5 million that comes in from the businesses in the community. All of that revenue would be lost. Corporations obviously would benefit, businesses would benefit, but the school district certainly would not. Residents would not be off the hook. They would still have to pay off existing debt, which at this point would amount to approximately $740 for the median assessed tax bill, in addition to all of their other taxes that they will have to continue to pay, municipal, county, state, and so forth. One of the main considerations that we have is with property taxes, Mr. King can do a very, very predictable and accurate analysis of approximately how much revenue we can expect even early on in the year. You all saw in my preliminary tax presentation to the board that we can basically estimate with fairly good fidelity how much revenue we will be getting from property taxes. The problem with this proposed legislation is we have no way of knowing how much income will be generated or raised as a result of the increases in either the personal income tax or the sales tax. Those are all unknown figures. So obviously, if those estimates do not come to fruition and they're not as high as anticipated, we could stand to lose a significant amount of money. And there is absolutely no plan that anyone has come up with to help us make up the deficit and to pay for all of the needs that we have in the district, whether it's unfunded mandates from the state, our PSERS increases, staffing increases, programs that we would like to see, or whatever. So obviously we're very, very concerned about that. And finally, as you board members know, because it's more or less within your authority to approve the budget that we present to you, and what we try to do is to get informed approval from you. We try to give you as much information as we can, not only through our presentations to you here at public board meetings, but also through our committee meetings, where many of the items that ultimately go into building the budget are thoroughly vetted by board members in those committee meetings. Local control will vanish once property taxes are eliminated. You will no longer have the authority to make the determination and the decisions about what you believe Springfield Township School District should have in its schools. And that's true for the community members who would like input as well. There no longer will be appropriate venues for input, since we won't be able to have that kind of vetting of what we feel should belong in the budget. So at this point, I'm just going to punt the ball back to Mr. Taylor and ask if he has any further comments, because I know he's been following this very closely as well.
The only thing I would note for today is that when Governor Wolf did his budget proposal, he did not mention any new taxes in there or the property elimination tax. But however, obviously today was the first step of Pennsylvania budget, and usually this is when you really need to keep an eye on when any of these new bills or bills that are reinstated would come up. So even though nothing was mentioned today, I'm going to keep watch out, because I would expect that this bill will come up again this year at some point. In the past, it's gone unnoticed for a couple months, and then all of a sudden it's come up. And actually, when the split vote came up in 2015, it was down to the wire, and not many people had realized that it made it that far. So it's definitely one of those issues that, even though it's quiet right now and nothing happened today, that you got to keep an eye on what's going on. So that's all I'd add for now.
I just had a question. Do you have any idea how something like that would impact our construction projects?
Ask Mr. King to talk about the debt issue, because yes, that's obviously a very big consideration that we have.
Well, under the proposed plan, they're suggesting that any new debt that the district takes on has to go to referendum. So right now we're in the middle of looking at two projects. We've issued one bond issue so far. Now, if this goes into effect as of July 1, subsequent, we'd have to go out and get taxpayer approval to be able to issue that debt. So that adds another level of complexity to how we're going to fund these programs. Dr. Hacker mentioned that part of the taxes will still be issued to be able to pay for the existing debt. So that's another component. In addition to all the things that Dr. Hacker had mentioned, there's a lot of implementation issues that still haven't been resolved with this program. When you talked a little bit about cash flow, a lot of the real estate taxes, they come in July and August. So we have that money. There's interest that's earned off that money. So not only we're not sure how much money we're actually going to get back from the state, we're not sure when we're going to get that money. Periods of recession, there's no guarantee that they'll have the money to make those payments. If they come up with any, you talked about the PESERS mandate, but if they come up with any other additional mandates, are they prepared to fund those? And how will they fund them? So there's still a lot of questions about how this is going to be. It sounds, as Dr. Hacker alluded, it sounds great. Nobody likes the property tax, but what does it actually mean in the long run, and how are we going to be able to run schools? It's a little challenging.
And I just have one more question. Do we already have the bonds issued for the project we were going to do this summer?
The stadium project is being funded from fund balance. So we do have the
I
money
thought
for
so,
that.
I just I couldn't remember
We
exactly.
did
Okay.
issue a $10 million bond issue last year. That's going to be used after for phase 2 and 3. It's already being used for some of the pre-planning of the new K2. So.
Nancy, I just have a question about the discussion that was held at the event that you attended. I guess other than corporations, everyone loses with this. So when you think about it from a common sense point of view, if you have no property tax, but every time you go to the grocery store, you're paying 7% on your food and you're paying 7% on your clothing, it either ends up being a wash or you end up losing money. And so the only group that's making out on this are corporations that have a win-win. They're not paying taxes and they're charging people tax for their goods now. So I'm curious to know, at the presentation that you attended, was there any talk about what's being done on a basic grassroots level to go out, to have maybe the individual representatives go out to the communities and say, at first blush, everybody says thumbs up, this sounds great, but to literally do, I mean, in my household, I would do like a line-by-line comparison about this is how much I spent last month in groceries, so this is what my tax would be on my food, versus this is about how much Springfield raises taxes per year. It just, to me, other than corporations, sounds like a no-brainer. So I'm just curious to know, what's being done on a broader level to make people in the state aware about how this can impact them.
That's a great question. It really wasn't discussed yesterday. Yesterday was more of an opportunity for individual representatives from districts to talk about it from the perspective of how it's impacting issues particular to their own district. So, for example, one individual talked about the heavy costs of the PSERS burden that we all have and how much that's increased, and why we need a good tax base through property taxes to help pay for those increased costs. Another superintendent talked about charter schools and how they put out over $2 million a year to pay for students in their community to attend a bricks and mortar charter school. So it was more based on a personal perspective of this is what it's going to do in my district as the result. There really was not significant discussion, but again, I think the message to all of us is we do want to publicize this. We do want people not only to be aware, but as James correctly said, to keep an eye out for upcoming legislation, for upcoming action in the Senate and in the House, so that if this does look like it's imminent, we're all aware of it. We can flood Harrisburg with emails and so forth to prevent this from occurring. So right now, it's an awareness campaign to make people aware that this is out there. We're not looking, there's not going to be a vote imminently taking place, but we just want to make sure that people understand what the issues are and have the facts.
And as a practical matter, that meeting was covered in the media and obviously got picked up by a number of media outlets which published the contents of that, which hopefully is raising awareness. I think on a daily basis, I have seen more than on any other piece of legislation proposed, at least 5 to 7 major articles throughout the state in addressing the impact of what looks like a facially attractive legislation. And actually there is a calculator to even do what you were saying that is online, that you can make a comparison to show what, on a rough basis, whether you would come out, how you would come out. But very frankly, the real winners on this issue is, the real winners are the corporate entities that would no longer have to pay taxes under the scenario, and the taxes would be essentially borne by individuals in lieu of corporations. That's the major shift, and I think that's a very profound shift and a major change on it. And the other misnomer was that southeastern Pennsylvania has wealthier school districts, and they're going to be hurt more than some of the poorer school districts. My firm is the solicitor in Reading, and certainly they're not in the same fiscal condition as the school district of Springfield Township. However, it would be apparently devastating for Reading, because the way they're going to compute the allocation, from what I'm told, is based upon the net receipts of the school district. And since their collection rate is on the basis of 87% in Reading versus what most suburban school districts are 97 to 99% in terms of collection, they would immediately see a shortfall of millions of dollars in Reading. So even a district that is poorer would be hurt tremendously by this issue. So a lot of this information is beginning to get out. Unfortunately, I think there is a lot of pressure politically, particularly on the Senate, to get this passed. I also believe that there will be a lot of pressure invoked on the House, and part of this, in my opinion, is a political strategy to have the legislature try to address property tax relief and force the governor to veto it in an effort to assist the campaign of perhaps Senator Wagner, who is very much opposed to the current system and would like to see property tax relief. So there are a lot of forces that are at play on this particular issue.
Well, it's certainly true that the corporations and industry benefit, but there's another group, senior citizens who are retired and have somewhat reduced personal income tax. They'll benefit because their property taxes will drop. Now, on the other side, they will pay more on consumption based on the sales tax, but that, it's probably going to be in their favor in the end, reduction in real estate taxes compared to the increase in the 1% sales tax. So they're a benefit as well. I just want one other thing, just as far as awareness goes, I mean, there's obviously the grassroots effort goes on the community level. I mean, I've been on this, I think, for at least 6 years since it ever came up. And but right now we also have, the Montgomery County Intermediary Unit has been involved with it. It's come up to meetings there. And the PSBA has also put out bulletins for call to actions to, especially with their newly elected senators that are in now, to, call them up and let them know what's going on so that they're not, blindsided thinking this is something that's, been on the books and they just need that extra effort to get it through, but to let them know that there's a lot of the public that are, against this type of plan going through.
Yeah, I just think that when people hear this, they probably think in the venue that you were at, people are like, well, you worry about it, school district. You worry about how you're going to fund those things. I'm just happy I don't have to pay taxes. But the increase in income tax, just that, when you think about if an average employer gives like a 2% cost of living increase, it's cut just by virtue of that. So I think that a lot of people maybe look at things in their own vacuum without thinking about the big picture. And if they think about it just in terms of, oh, yay, this is one less tax I have to pay, and you, Springfield Township, you worry about how you're going to fund these things without thinking about how it impacts everything else. What is the pound foolish, penny smart, pound foolish? Right, it's that kind of concept. So I think it's just important that it's good that these kind of organizations are going out. But again, I think that people need to hear from their representatives about how it's going to affect them personally and not so much how it's going to affect school districts. I don't think that people will make those decisions. I think they're going to say, too bad. You worry about how to do it. Cut programs, cut salaries, cut benefits, do what you have to do. But if you make it where it's going to hit their pocket, I think that that's where the grassroots needs to come from. So, I don't know.
And I think that's true for a certain population, but I think that clearly we also have a population of constituents that do feel strongly that they want to maintain Springfield schools, and those are the people that we also can appeal to, on a grassroots level, to become more of an advocate for us as a district and our children, ultimately because they're the ones that will be affected. So, you know, that's really, I think, the onus is on us as board members and on us as a district to now kind of galvanize our community, you know, and try to, you know, make them aware. So.
Not a fun conversation, but a necessary one. We've all been watching it thinking, oh my goodness. All right, so I think we are ready to move on to new business. Number 1, approval of tax collectors' compensation, recommended motion. The Board of School Directors resolves to set the tax collectors' compensation for collecting regular, installment, and interim school real estate taxes for the School District of Springfield Township at the following annual compensation rates and for the reimbursement of itemized expenses in greater of the February 7th, 2017 actual cost for bill processing and mailing, or $6,000 per year effective January 1st, 2018, for a term of 4 calendar years. 2018, $13,756. 2019, $15,722. 2020, $17,687. 2021, $19,652. This resolution does not intend to alter any other compensation terms, requirements, or expectations as previously set by the board. Any such items previously set shall remain in effect, subject to the above. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chapman. Aye. Mr. Salas. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Tara Tusker. Mr. Taylor. Mrs. Kowski.
Aye. Number 2, denial of taxpayer request to remove penalty. Recommended motion. The Board of School Directors denies taxpayers' 2017 A's request to remove the penalty applied for late payment of taxes as recommended by the Finance Committee. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I have a question. The letter that's in our folders, was this a letter that was presented to the Finance Committee and taken into consideration for this?
Yes.
So all these factors then were considered?
Mr. Chapman. Aye. Mr. Salas. Nay. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Tara Tusker. Mr. Taylor. Nay. Mrs. Kowski.
Aye. Number 3, approval of MCIU membership services budget, recommended motion. The Board of School Directors of the School District of Springfield Township approves the 2017-2018 membership services budget that was approved at the MCIU Board of Directors meeting on January 25th, 2017. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Second. Any questions or comments? Mr. King?
Mr. Chapman. Aye. Mr. Salas. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Tara Tusker. Mr. Taylor. Mrs. Kowski.
Aye. Number 4, approval of mail machine leases. Recommended motion. The Board of School Directors of the School District of Springfield Township approves the lease agreements made between the School District of Springfield Township and STR Business Solutions for a 5-year term for 2 mail machines at an annual cost of $3,720. Is there a motion? Second? Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chapman.
Aye. Number 5, resignation and release agreement, recommended motion. The Board of School Directors approves the resignation and release agreement between the School District of Springfield Township, employee number 108, and the Springfield Township Education Association, effective February 7th, 2017. Is there a motion? Second? Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chapman. Ms. Casares. Ms. Sarsfield. Dr. Terry Tucker. Mr. Taylor. Mr. Pinson.
Aye. Are there any public comments on non-agenda items? Future meeting dates. School board meeting, Tuesday, February 21st, 2017, 7 p.m., Freeze Memorial Lobby. Interim board meeting, Tuesday, March 7th, 2017, 7 p.m., Freeze Memorial Lobby. This meeting is marked tentative, depending on what we have up for the agenda. Board committee meetings, there will be a property committee meeting on Thursday, February 9th, 2017, at 8:15 a.m. in the administrative building. That is it, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you. Motion to adjourn.